Welcome to the latest episode of the Hunter Baumgardt Sports Podcast. My name is Hunter Baumgardt, your host. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HunterBeOnAir. Be sure to like the Facebook page as well, Hunter Baumgardt Sports. Also, remember, you can watch or listen to the podcast, whatever is more convenient for you. You can watch on YouTube or listen on SoundCloud. Just search Hunter Baumgardt Sports Podcast. Well, I am super excited for the podcast that we have today. We are going to talk to one of Wisconsin's most popular couples, Sam Dekker and Olivia Harlan Dekker. We all saw the career that Sam Dekker had at Madison, playing for the men's basketball team, including a couple of Final Four appearances. So I'll ask him about that. Also, Olivia, we have all seen her career at ESPN, NFL and Westwood One, also Big Ten Network. She has done a lot of reporting and has a lot of experience with that and covering great games. And so we are going to get into all of that today and also learn their story. How did they meet? All of those questions will be answered today on the podcast. So with no further ado, let's talk to Sam and Olivia. Joining us on the Hunter Baumgardt Sports Podcast, I'm thrilled to have one of Wisconsin's most popular couples, Sam Dekker and Olivia Harlan Dekker, joining me on the podcast. As you probably know, Sam played for the Badgers from 2012 to 2015, including making 2 appearances in the Final Four, played in the NBA for a few years before going to play professionally in Russia. Olivia is a reporter for ESPN, NFL and Westwood One, and the Big Ten Network. Thank you both for joining me this afternoon. Really excited to get to know you a little better.
Thanks, Hunter. It's good to be on with you.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks, man.
Thank you. So first I want to ask how you guys are doing. You know, obviously you both are very busy people in your professional lives. How has it been to kind of be hunkered down and a lot less busy than you usually are?
Good.
Well, it's funny. We both are obviously not working right now, as everyone who covers live sporting events or plays in live sporting events are. What's been cool for us is being able to pause and take the time to talk with people like you, to do more podcasts and shows, and to kind of explore our craft in that way. I know Sam's working out every day as well, and staying ready for whatever is to come, but it is weird, and we kind of keep joking we're both unemployed at the moment, which is a weird feeling. It doesn't feel like an off season. It feels more like this kind of what's next, pit in your stomach. But
I definitely agree with that. And one thing that's been weird is finding that motivation to work on whatever it is your job is right now, because a lot of people are like, what am I working for?
Yes.
So I'm kind of in that limbo stage where, like, well, we know our league is canceled, but what's after that? And when is basketball going to start? When is free agency going to start? So it's one of those things that everyone's kind of wondering what they're working for, working towards right now. So you got to find a little motivation within, and that's kind of been a challenge here, but it's been kind of fun to have a different mindset.
Yeah, Sam, so is your league, did they cancel the rest of their season? What kind of is going on there in Russia?
Yeah, it was canceled completely. It's one of those things that they hoped they could start. I think they put like April 12th, like let's start April 12th. But it's hard when over half the league is imports, so like you got so many Americans over there, and then, other guys from other, countries in Europe. So it's hard to send guys home for 2 months and expect to get them back. So it's a little different than the NBA, where 90% of the NBA is Americans, so you can always get them whenever you need them. So our league is canceled, and now it's just one of those waiting games. And I still have communication with our organization over there, but it's just one of those things that right now everyone's doing what they're told and staying home.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this, and Olivia, you can talk about this experience as well. Sam coming home when this all hit, because obviously you're in a different country, et cetera, because you were playing at the time, correct? So how was that experience, kind of needing to come back to the U.S. pretty fast?
Yeah, so we had the last game. There was one night we played, I think it was a Tuesday or Wednesday, we played in Estonia, one of our league games, and we were the last professional basketball game to be played, and we were like only game that night. We're like, what is going? Because we were like one of the last leagues to cancel or postpone. So we went in business as usual. There was no fans in the crowd, but we played a game, and then it still was one of those things. Like, I was calling her like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe there's going to be postponement. It wasn't like this world pandemic yet. And then like a couple days later, they're like, all Russian people have to be on quarantine. A couple days later, it got worse and worse and worse. And then it turned into, Sam, you have to get home as soon as possible. And the team was really nice in getting us on a plane, getting us me, I should say, a flight as soon as possible, get out of there. And it took me about 40 hours to get home. And if I waited one more day, I think I'd still be there right now.
Wow. Just got in under the wire. Olivia, how that must have been nerve-wracking for you wanting him to get home ASAP.
Yeah, it was funny because one day he calls me and says, they're saying Americans can go home if we want, and if they resume play, we could fly back, but Russia may shut its borders. There were like a lot of scenarios in the air. And I remember at that point, I was like, if it's me, I'm going to get home. And if you miss the last month of play or whatever, yeah, that would be unfortunate, but you'd be home and not stuck potentially in Russia, and then they close. That would be kind of the worst case scenario. So then the next day he calls me and he says, Russia's closing its borders at midnight. I have to get on a plane today. And we're like, okay, I guess that took care of that question. And so he was on a flight, and I remember he had to fly to Istanbul just to get out of the country, spend the night at the Istanbul airport, and then get to JFK, and then get to O'Hare where his mom picked him up. And it was such a whirlwind. It felt like a drama in a movie.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like it, to be honest with you as well. Sam Dekker and Olivia Harlan Dekker joining me on the podcast here. So how has it been when, obviously all things are normal and, Sam, you're playing overseas. How have you guys been able to kind of go through that long distance and stay strong and knowing you both are pursuing your passions? Because obviously, you both have busy professional schedules. How has that been doing the long distance?
Well, I think one thing that has helped, well, first of all, I'll say it's not easy.
Right.
But one thing that definitely helped was, 3 of my first 4 years in the NBA, I was with her. So our busiest times are kind of September to December. So we were kind of long distancing a little bit just with how often she was on the road and how often I was on the road. So we kind of got a taste a little bit of that. And there was times where we'd go a month, we'd be in the same country, but we'd just be missing each other, missing each other. So it helped getting that under our belt, but this was a whole different monster going, over the water to a different continent. That's tough. We made do. I think she came to Russia twice. She met me in Turkey one time, and then for New Year's we met in Paris.
And Venice.
Oh, in Venice.
We actually tell each other about once a month.
Yeah, that was our thing.
Which was wild.
Wanted to see each other once a month, and every time I'd say, I don't think any other college football reporters are midweek going to France or Italy in between her games, but she did it. She was a trooper about it. She took the jet lag in the face, didn't care about it, and we just wanted to see each other. So she definitely made it easier on me, and just getting in a schedule of when we can talk to each other.
Yeah, that's the hard thing, the time change.
Yeah.
And it's not only about your availability, but we would laugh, if I'm waking up in the morning and, when you start your day, you're like, hey, I need my coffee. I need to sit down and go through my emails. Like, you have your routine.
Sure.
So he'd be sitting down for dinner and he's like, hey, what's up? Wanting to talk. And I'm like, can I call you in an hour? I need to get my day together. And so it's just kind of you just kind of miss each other on a, kind of where your head's at as well as just, when I would go to bed at night, he would have been asleep for 6 hours. So it's just kind of that weird thing of not being able to say good night or good morning. And but it was our communication, I think, got super strong because you have to just make sure you're being clear. You have to really be cognizant of what the other person's doing and feeling. And
if you talk if you talk once or twice a day, you got to make it worth it. So I think we tried to get everything we could in it, and we made it work.
Yeah, I love that. So that's kind of how your your relationship is now. How did you two meet? I've been really curious to know where, Olivia, were you interviewing him one game and you're like, I'm going to marry that guy. No, but what was kind of how did you guys meet?
I think that's what people assume, and I'm really thankful that's not how it happened, because that'd be extremely unprofessional on both of our ends.
Exactly.
No, it's funny. I was covering the Atlanta Hawks for 3 years, living in Atlanta, and a girlfriend of mine who went to Georgia with me knew one of his Wisconsin teammates and knew Sam, and basically just said, you guys are the perfect match. And I was coming through Houston anyways, and we met on a Sunday afternoon to go watch Packers Dallas.
Vikings. Packers-Vikings.
They lost.
At a Packers bar in Houston.
So I was like, okay, this is
so I brought my buddy.
the easiest first date. Yeah, he brought his best friend. So it was the three of us. And I just thought, if this goes horribly wrong, I can always leave. But no, and the funny thing was, so I finished out that season with the Hawks. We met in September. And I was, we fell for each other super fast. And I was like, should I still be covering the Hawks or should I move to Houston? And because we were engaged in 8 months.
Okay.
We moved very quickly. And then I thought I'm going to finish the season, finish my commitment. It was so early, obviously. And we played each other twice. One was at Houston, obviously, and I did not have that game. I had a bunch of our road games, but not that one. So
and the one at Atlanta, and the one in Atlanta, she wasn't working. It was weird how it worked.
I think it was on a Saturday, and I had a football game. So
very random that we didn't have to go through that. But her dad calls many of my games. So
right.
And everyone would always give me a hard time on the team. They'd say like, this is when we were dating, and be like, your father-in-law's got our game. I'd be like, stop calling him that. Like it was
we weren't engaged yet.
Yeah. So
right.
Or like the coach would come in and be like, make sure he says some nice things about us today. I'm like, I'll do what I can, but yeah.
I love that. Sam Dekker and Olivia Harlan Dekker joining me on the podcast. You can follow Sam on Twitter at Dekker and Olivia at Olivia Dekker. So Sam, question for you about the Final Four experiences at Wisconsin. Obviously for me as a Badger fan, a lot of those watching, is so incredibly exciting for us to watch you guys. So was there a moment in that run where you were, at the stadium, on the bus, during a game that you kind of looked around and was like, wow, I am playing in the Final Four?
I think the first one especially, because it was in Dallas, so that stadium is just so grand. And that was the biggest venue that basketball has ever been played in. So that one for sure. I think when we were sitting, Badger fans know we have these little benches that we sit, during warm-ups and then during starting lineups. And I was sitting on this bench next to Josh Gosser, and he just hit me. He's looked at me, and I just looked around, and I'm like, this is just wild. And that was the one time it hit me. And then once you go out on the court, the game turns into the game. But you always have to take a moment. And I think Coach Ryan had told us before the game, he said, you don't have to put this face on. Go out, you should go out for at least a minute or two, just go out and be grateful and be thankful and just take it all in. Look around you, take it all in. Breathe in that air, let those nerves out, and then go play. And I think that definitely helped. But yeah, the first Final Four definitely is very, it's a little overwhelming. But once the ball tips, I will say it does feel like basketball again.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are there a certain few you were closer with on that team, or still stay in contact with most of them?
I talk with a lot of them still.
Okay.
I would say me and Shoei. Zach Showalter have been best friends since our first day on campus. So I talk to him almost every day. And then I talk to Josh Gosser and Frank weekly or a few times a week.
That's
awesome. And then Nigel helped me a lot this past year. My first year overseas. He's been over there now 3 years. So we FaceTime all the time. And he's such a good person. So he's always fun to talk to, and he helped me out a little bit, just get my mind off hoops. So yeah, I talked to probably throughout my years, I probably talked to 10 of those guys still all the time.
Cool. That's awesome. Olivia, question for you. Obviously, your dad being Kevin Harlan, you grew up around the broadcasting industry. How did your dad inspire you to want to get into the same industry?
Well, I'm one of 4 kids, and I'm the only one who got into this, and would have preferred that none of us did. He always says it's such a paranoid, stressful, convoluted business. You're kind of always looking over your shoulder, and not conducive to a family life, not conducive to a normal life, a social life, everything. But I couldn't do anything else. I never even thought of doing anything else. And I just would go to games with him as a kid and sit in the production trucks and sit in the broadcast booth, and was in awe of him. I think in general, I just look up to my dad so much and so badly want to be like him in so many ways. So I don't think it's any surprise I followed in his profession. But he has been an incredible coach, if that makes sense. And it's funny, Sam's dad was his high school coach, and we have a picture right over here in our house of both of us with our dads on a basketball court in various ways. And that just kind of sums up who we are, because I think we both have such a reverence for our parents, and never have taken it for granted that their hard work and their dedication to both of our careers has gotten us where we are. So no, we're incredibly tight, talk every day, I think. And his coachability towards me at a young age was so major in my quick rise.
That's fantastic. I was wondering as well, like, obviously you're right in the thick of the action being a sideline reporter, and a lot of people don't realize, you're right, you're getting, these interviews right after the game ends or right after something happens. I'm curious, is there a specific game you covered or a finish that happened that the atmosphere was crazy around you, but you had to stay composed and do the interview?
Oh my gosh, anyone that's kind of a last second buzzer beater shot or made field goal, anything like that. Because logistically, if you're a sideline reporter, you kind of want to be positioned as the clock's winding down on the winning team's sideline. Because then you run out, you've got your camera guy, your light guy, and your security guy. So they're kind of flanking you. And, both teams are meeting here in the middle, and you're trying to just get the coach right after the handshake. And so, first of all, just being a smaller woman, you're just disadvantaged to begin with, and you're just kind of throwing elbows and trying to make sure you get to the coach. And then when you don't know who's going to be that winner, then you're just taking a chance and being on either side. I think one that sticks out to me from this football season, I had Texans at Saints, first Monday night game of the year. And that was on Westwood One. And it was such an amazing game, won on a field goal. And we had a run to the other side. I interviewed Alvin Kamara, and he just lamented about his kicker. And it was such an amazing moment, but we didn't know the Saints are going to win. So it's times like that you just feel like you're earning every dollar you're paid, if you know what I mean. You're so wired in and focused, and in such that, athletes talk about that flow state, and you kind of drop your notes and go on instinct. And those are the most meaningful interviews. They feel the best, and I think they're the best to watch and listen to.
That's awesome. Sam, last question for you. Going back to a little bit about your Badger days, what was Bo Ryan like to play for? Obviously one of the best coaches in Wisconsin program history. What was it like? And kind of give Wisconsin sports fans a glimpse of what it was like to be with Bo Ryan day in and day out.
Yeah, he was obviously an old school approach a lot of times with kind of the discipline. Everything you have heard about or have seen or have thought about has probably been true in some regard with, just the way he is on the sidelines and in practice and in the locker room. But he also has a switch where he can turn into just a guy and can, just talk with you. And I think that's what sometimes people forget about him is, he really let our team let loose. My last 2 years, those two Final Four years, he kind of changed his style a little bit and let us be us and let us be quirky to the cameras and let us wear whatever we wanted to wear. And because he knew we had a veteran team that could lock in, and a sign of a good coach that doesn't feel like he has to monitor us our every move. I know so many guys and so many teams that had so many rules, and we had none. And because he knew, if I groom these young men in a way and show them this disciplined way of basketball and life, then he's not going to have to worry about us off or on the court. So, if you teach those principles, to us as a freshman, like right away, it kind of sticks with you forever. And I think maybe sometimes in my daily life still, things are, things that he taught me I probably still use. And I have one thing before I get off. It was my senior year of high school. It was they had just lost to Ohio State, and I was on a visit. I was in the locker room, sitting in the back with my mom, watching Coach talk to the team in the locker room. And he had this one thing that I think about all the time. He said, every morning you wake up, there's a canvas in front of you, and when you go to bed every night, I want you to be proud of the picture that you were able to paint that day. And he probably doesn't even remember saying that, but that was such a good lesson. And I still think about it sometimes, that when I go to bed, I want to be happy with the work I did, the things I did for people, the way I treated Olivia, the way I treated my family and friends. I want to go to bed with a good picture painted. And that's the type of teacher that he is.
I've never heard that story. Yeah. That's such a good one.
Yeah, that is absolutely awesome. And you know, a lot of different coaches have different, you know, things maybe they use all the time, but it can sometimes be that one moment that you're like that, you know, I'm going to take that for the rest of my life, or maybe you don't know it at the moment, but eventually, you know, going through life, you're like, that really stuck with me. So that
Yeah,
is,
it makes
yeah.
so much sense.
Yeah, right. It totally does.
Yeah.
Especially during these times that people hear that, et cetera. You know, everybody's kind of wanting a purpose right now. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's hard to figure that if you don't have a job, et cetera. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking about that day to day. Well, Sam and Olivia, I really appreciate the time this afternoon, and definitely maybe connect again down the road. But I'm sure Wisconsin sports fans are going to be eager to hear this, and really appreciate you taking time out of your busy COVID schedules.
Hunter, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun for me too. So talk soon.
Thanks, Hunter.
That's Sam Dekker and Olivia Harlan Dekker right here on the Hunter Baumgardt Sports Podcast. You can follow Sam on Twitter at Dekker. That's Dekker. You can follow Olivia on Twitter at Olivia Dekker. Thanks so much to them once again for joining me on the podcast today. Just super great discussion. You can tell they're super down to earth people, super passionate about their professions. And it was great to get to know their story a little more, both professionally and how they met. What a great story as well. So just loved the interview, and I hope you did as much as I. Feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Hunter Be On Air. Be sure to like the Facebook page as well, Hunter Baumgardt Sports. You can get all the updates on the podcast. Remember, you can watch or listen to the podcast. You can watch on YouTube or listen on SoundCloud. Just search Hunter Baumgardt Sports Podcast. Thanks again to Sam and Olivia for joining me today. Stay healthy. We can do this, and hopefully this was a bright spot in your day. And as always, stay positive.